Hi, I'm Chris Lipscomb, and I'm here with Tef today to talk about Cities Skylines, a new game from Paradox Interactive, publishing it, and Colossal Order developing it. You might remember Colossal Order as the guys who did Cities in Motion games that I both love and am terrified of, just because they're fantastic but are incredibly deep. And so, Tef, before we get on to kind of talk about Skylines itself, the obvious comparison here is to SimCity. And there was the huge debacle with the last SimCity game from EA.
Yeah, SimCities was an odd one because not SimCities. SimCity was an odd one because it was kind of like Maxis and EA thought this is what we really want to do, and they didn't take into account that people just want to build massive cities.
Yeah, exactly, and they don't want all that online. They don't want all the online stuff. They don't want to cooperate with people. They want to be able to enable cheat mode and give themselves infinite money and build a f***off big city, and that's about it.
Yeah, pretty much. And yeah, it annoyed a lot of people. Then they came along, and actually with Cities Skylines, they announced this back at Gamescom.
Oh yeah,
at the Paradox event then, and I think they announced it like 3 days before EA said, "Oh yeah, we are now doing an offline patch." And so it's quite funny that in the teaser trailer, it's like you can play offline, you can do mods, and it's just like, yep, you're just messing with EA now. That's brilliant.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
But yeah, like SimCity is a couple of years old now. Skylines is out. I think it's start of the next month, and because it's funny how like all of a sudden the city building genre has got just that little bit crowded because there was Cities XXL, which came out last month.
Was it XXL or was it just XL?
No, it's been XL for a long time, and then XXLs came out.
Oh, and they updated it all.
Yeah, but the problem is that it's not been very well received. I think I haven't played it myself, but and TSA hasn't had a review of it. But going on the general reaction, it's been a disappointing release here. So 2 out of 3 haven't gone down very well. So, there's a lot of people who like city builders hoping that Skylines can do the job.
Yeah, and then what I've seen of Skylines, it does look like it's the real McCoy this time. Kind of looks like they're putting a lot into this game, a lot of effort, and really trying to nail down what people want. And they seem to be taking a lot of fan feedback as well, which is really good to see.
Yeah, I mean that's really Paradox Interactive's specialty, communicating with their audience, listening to what they want, and then also coming out with rapid fire patches, lots of expansion packs as well.
Yeah, I mean one of the things I did find with Cities in Motion was that although they are fantastic games, they're kind of a little bit difficult to get into because they're just the mechanics are so deep. Does City Skylines have that same kind of issue of they kind of ease you in as a newcomer?
Yeah, I think that's something that they've taken on board. I know that talking with the devs at this event, they were saying stuff like they actually brought in new people to redesign the UI compared to Cities in Motion, so it's like a whole new UI. And should be a lot more intuitive to figure out. Yeah,
because it's a little bit clunky in Cities in Motion. It does take a while to get to grips with.
Yeah, and I mean, it also helps that with Cities in Motions, I think it was real cities.
Yes.
And those real layouts. So that's something that's already established, and then you're working within that. Whereas in Skylines, you're actually designing the whole city from the start. So there's a much... there's a very natural difficulty curve to it. You start off very simple with placing the roads, and I think placing the roads in this game is an absolute joy. Really, you can do straight roads, you can do a grid if you want, or you can just very easily just go crazy and just go all European, just have higgledy-piggledy roads all over the place and barely any space for greenery or anything like that.
It's great to see a game really committing to that, because that's always been a problem with city builders, with SimCity in particular, that they never really gave you that flexibility. And obviously they tried in the latest iteration, but it kind of got overshadowed by other issues it had.
Yes, as we've already discussed. Yes. There are some things which are a little counterintuitive, and I don't know if it was just because, although we had a couple of hours to play the game, I just didn't twig how one or two things work. So with the utilities, with the core infrastructure, electricity and water, I hadn't twigged that the water pipes did both sewage and fresh water. So I had like a water inlet on one side of this island and an outlet on the other. So I was then trying to figure out how I could match them between each other, and then suddenly like it auto snapped, and it was just like, oh, they go together. And I hadn't figured that out.
But that's kind of a sane thing, though, to go on to say, like, well, I want the fresh water in one system
exactly.
and the sewage on another system, because that's how it works.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's a lot nicer like this. I think it's easier to just have one set of pipes that you're looking after.
Absolutely.
And even if they wanted them to be separate, then like logically they'd be on different levels, really, or you'd like it doesn't matter. But there's plenty of ground to cut pipes through. And yeah, I think it's then a very different system to where you want to connect electricity to your city, which in that case, that spreads from building to building. Like it's not along roads, there's just a natural flow of electricity. But you do need to draw pylons from, if the power station is isolated, between that and like the nearest destination with electricity. But I mean, those little things aside, like I picked those things up really quite quickly, and it was just like, I figured it out basically. And so maybe a tiny bit more tutorial, but like it's not a big deal. It's very easy to get to grips with.
That's good to hear, because that is kind of always with these big sprawling games, it's always a key element. Talking of sprawling, how big can you get here? Because again, that was a complaint with SimCity, that you couldn't get it as big as people wanted. And from what you're saying, it does sound like Cities Skylines is going to let you get as big as you want.
Yeah, there is a limit.
Okay.
There is a limit to how far you can go, but you start off with one plot of land, which is 2 kilometres by 2 kilometres, I think. And I also think that that's the same size as a plot in SimCity, but I'm not 100% sure on those numbers. What I do know is that from that point, you can then buy adjacent plots, and instead of having to build a whole new city, it's just another bit of land, which is completely attached. Which,
exactly as you'd want it to be, really.
Yeah, exactly. And you can get up to 9 of these squares of land, as long as they're adjacent to each other. But you pick these from a grid of 25, so 5 by 5. And what I quite like about that is that it means that you can play the same map again, and but you can import like a height map into the game, for example. So you could import Manhattan Island, and you can pick 9 tiles from that and head off in a completely different direction and end up with a very different looking city if you wanted. So there's an interesting twist on the replayability that you can get out of it.
Yeah, that 9 from 25 is a nice mechanic, though. That's kind of a way of not forcing you to go kind of traditional square or rectangular city. You can go however you want and just make weird shapes if you feel like it.
Could have a big L if you really wanted to.
All my cities just gigantic L's.
Yeah, there is also a limit on the number of people that can live in your city, which is set to 1 million.
Okay.
And that is like you kind of hear 1 million and you think, well, that's not a very big city, but at the same time, it's still a hell of a lot of people for the game to actually track.
Yeah.
Each one has got like an individual name and job and house, and they go from one place to the next to the same day. So like, if you wanted, and you can also, what's quite funny is that you can rename them. So I spent about 2 minutes finding a fire engine, following it to, no, actually I found a fire, and then I zoomed in, and then I was just like, right, I'm pausing this, and I'm renaming all of my Fireman Sam.
Well, obviously.
First name Fireman, surname Sam.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you? That'd be lunacy not to.
Exactly.
Did you find any postmen to rename as well?
I did not. I'm not sure if the game has a postal service.
Oh, it needs it.
It does, yeah. Well, what it has is it's got this Twitter-like system for like live feedback. So like if you put in parkland somewhere, then you'll get a little chirper, that's what it's called, and it does chirp incessantly, and you get little things like, oh, I'm really happy about this park which you put here, I can hear the birds singing in the day, it's so lovely that you're a wonderful mayor, and all this stuff. And there's nice little bits of feedback, and so that you can get that, you've just got another little indication of what you might need to do to keep people a bit happier and get more people in your city.
Yeah, it's nice to get that feedback as a very as just straight up text, rather than kind of trying to intuit it from what's kind of how citizens are reacting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a clever one. I mean, as I was just messing around in this, I didn't really pay it too much attention. That's the only thing that I'd say about it. I feel that maybe because it was so regular, and also like I mandated that every house have a fire alarm.
Okay, well that's same.
Well, yeah, but then like I didn't realise, and I'm not against it. What the consequences? I like cats, but I didn't realise that I was going to inadvertently save about 15,000 cats' lives. Because every single tweet or chirp about the fire detectors that I heard saw in the box seemed to be, oh, you've saved my cat's life, and it's just like, okay, maybe a little bit more variety there. But we'll see how that is.
Someone to put a little bit more expansion in.
Yeah, no dogs in this city. You can actually do interesting stuff with, like you can like have a pet ban, for example.
Okay.
Although, if I have the pet ban and the fire detectors, would that still save cats' lives?
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, you need to once it's out, you need to test it.
Yeah, that's the difference between like a 6 and a 10.
Yeah,
like that's a big one.
That's it. If it's telling you there's pets when you've banned the pets, or is it just people flouting your pet law?
It just that must be. And then I could actually then counteract it by raising the budget for the police department.
Ah, perfect. One of the things that has kind of annoyed me, because I've been playing recently I've been playing SimCity Build It, the mobile version.
Right.
And one of the things that annoys me there is you can't really subdivide your city in any way. It's just like, oh, it's residential, and then it's just kind of, it stays, you're always aiming to get it up to skyscrapers. Is City Skylines a little bit more kind of fine-grained than that you can really split stuff up into the districts that you want? Yes,
well, I mean, you obviously have the usual stuff of being able to paint out like a residential zone, and a commercial and an industrial zone. There we go, I got it right that time. But then, yes, you can have, and I think they are actually called districts as well. And what's nice here is that so, like, look at LA in real life. You've got Santa Monica and you've got Hollywood.
Yeah.
They're two very different places, and then, like, they've got different names as well on the map.
Oh, that's
nice.
Which is
quite cool.
That's really cool.
But then within the game, like, it's not just a cosmetic thing. You can then have different tax breaks, different tax levels. You can, in an industrial zone, for example, you could tell it to focus on forestry if you've decided to build it up within like a heavily forested area on the map. And like things like the pet ban and the deregulation of drugs and stuff like that, you can have that on a district by district basis. So you could have like New Amsterdam if you really wanted.
Well,
from the wire,
perfect.
Right, just like one tiny block of your city is New Amsterdam.
Why wouldn't you want that?
And so there's clever. That's one of the really clever ideas in the game, I think. Just to like it gives you a way to manage that overall sprawl and like encourage like the industry to grow in one area in a certain way and like differently across the whole map.
Yeah, that is kind of genius to give you that kind of really fine-grained control that has been. It's one of those things that seems obvious in retrospect, but it's really been lacking from kind of other titles, that kind of getting really nitty-gritty with it, and that's great to see. On another note, because obviously I was mentioning earlier about the Cities in Motion stuff, have they kind of brought that experience in so you've got fairly dynamic traffic systems, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I think is going to come out when we've got the final game and we're aiming for a review. I don't want to say it's going to be to the level of Cities in Motion because I don't think it will be. But it's, I think it has a degree of complexity to it, which like is at least going to be match, if not better, what else we've got in existing city builders. Yeah,
it's sort of something that you can play with if you want and get a little bit of depth into it, but obviously it's not going to be as deep as Cities in Motion is, no.
But then they might come back to this because, like as I said, like Paradox are very good at having expansion packs, and lots of patches and adding new content as over more than a year for a game, a lot longer in some cases. And so that could be the subject and the topic of an expansion pack, because it's a game that is going to rely in some ways on the community for mods.
Yeah.
It's got Steam Workshop support built in, so you'll be able to create whatever city building that you want. On top of that, like Colossal Order are going to be adding new building types and things to the game themselves. But what's really going to help support this is like they need to build more systems for people to play with.
Absolutely.
Like because like if someone can build a building and put it in, then they can do so just as well as Colossal Order can. I mean, Colossal Order might do it to a higher standard, but like anybody can build those buildings. What they can't do is say, I want to create an underground network if there is no support for underground networks in the game. And so I think that might be something which Colossal Order lean towards more so than creating content packs.
And finally, when can we expect to see this on shelves, or on virtual Steam shelves in a way?
Yes, shelves made out of Steam.
Exactly.
Is that what you
mean?
No. So it's actually out on the 10th of March, which is pretty close. All of the PCs, so Windows, Linux, and Mac, and we will hopefully have a review in time for that.
Okay, well, it sounds really interesting at least, and I just wish my PC was capable of running it. It'll die. It'll explode if I try and put City Skylines on it. It'll collapse under its own weight. Terrible. But thank you all for watching. This has been Kris and Tef for thesickfaxis.com. Goodbye.